Well, welcome to Everyday English Flow, daily English practice, natural speaking, and effortless listening flow.
So glad to be here for this one.
Yeah, today we are taking you on a really comprehensive journey. Our mission in this deep dive is to elevate your English to a true C1 level by thoroughly exploring the advanced vocabulary, the vivid idioms, and the deeply ingrained cultural nuances of summer in North America.
Because, we aren't just memorizing lists of words here. We are going to actually unpack the underlying logic, the history, and really the psychology behind the language of the season.
For sure. Today, you will master exactly 6 major categories of English summer vocabulary, featuring over 20 advanced idioms and phrasal verbs. And there is one special bonus waiting for you at the very end.
Oh, that bonus is a good one, too.
It totally is. So make sure you stay with us for that. Let's dive right into the deep end, starting with the environment itself. Category 1. When summer arrives in North America, the weather isn't just warm. It can become, fiercely extreme.
Oh, absolutely. And naturally, the English language has developed a highly specific set of terms to describe this chaos.
Right. So let's look at a foundational concept that just seems to dominate the news cycle every July. The heat wave.
The dreaded heat wave.
Yeah. On the surface, it sounds pretty straightforward, but it actually seems like a highly subjective, almost relative term, right?
It's entirely relative, which is actually what makes it such a brilliant sociolinguistic marker. It is believed by language experts that weather terminology is always deeply tied to the baseline climate of a specific region.
Oh, so like what people are used to.
Exactly. The vocabulary is anchored to their normal. For example, in a place like Canada or, say, the northern United States, a heat wave is officially declared by meteorologists when you have temperatures in the low 30s.
And that's Celsius, right?
Yes, Celsius. So around 30, 31, or 32 degrees for more than 2 or 3 consecutive days.
See, I can just imagine someone listening to this from a tropical climate, maybe in Southeast Asia or the Middle East.
Oh, they're definitely laughing at us.
Literally laughing out loud. To them, 31 degrees is just a pleasant Tuesday morning. It's a cool breeze.
Yeah, totally comfortable.
But for folks up north, that exact same number constitutes a state of, meteorological emergency.
Precisely. Because populations further north are accustomed to long, freezing winters, their physiological and psychological tolerance for extended periods of heat is remarkably low.
That makes sense.
And their infrastructure isn't always built for it either. Not everyone has AC. So the phrase heat wave is deployed to describe any period, usually an extended duration, where the temperature violently disrupts the local norm.
Wow. Violently disrupts. I like that.
But I really want you to focus on the noun wave. We don't call it a heat block or a heat period.
Right. A wave implies something moving.
Exactly. Something immense, oceanic, and unavoidable that washes over you. You can't fight a wave. You just have to survive it until it rolls back out to sea. It perfectly encapsulates that feeling of being trapped by the weather.
I love that visual. A literal wave of heat
Yep.
drowning the city. But, anyone who has spent a summer in places like Chicago, New York, or Toronto knows that the raw temperature only tells half the story.
Oh, yeah. The thermometer is basically lying to you.
Completely lying.
Yeah.
Which brings us to a highly advanced and crucial piece of C1 vocabulary, the humidex. Can you break down the mechanics of this word?
Yeah, so the humidex is a deeply ingrained concept in North American weather forecasting, and understanding it is absolutely critical for natural daily conversation.
It's a blend of 2 words, right?
Yes, it's a portmanteau, a blending of the words humidity and index. It is essentially a mathematical calculation.
Okay, so how do they calculate it?
Meteorologists take the actual air temperature and combine it with the dew point, which basically represents the amount of moisture or humidity currently trapped in the air. This complex calculation determines how hot the air actually feels to the human body.
Oh, so it's the stark difference between what the scientific instrument says and what your skin is screaming at you.
That's the perfect way to frame it.
Yeah.
The human body cools itself down through an incredible mechanism, sweating.
Right, we all sweat.
And when sweat evaporates off your skin into the air, it pulls heat away with it. It's evaporative cooling. But if the air is heavily saturated with water...
Like when the humidity is nearing 80 or 90%.
Exactly. The air simply cannot hold any more moisture. Your sweat has nowhere to go. Ugh, that is the worst feeling.
It doesn't evaporate. It just sits on you. And because this cooling mechanism fails, your internal core temperature rises. So the actual air temperature might be a manageable 32 degrees Celsius, but your body experiences the physical stress of 40 degrees.
And that 40 is the humidex.
That feels like temperature of 40 is the
And
humidex.
just to clarify regional variations for our listeners, linguists often point out that in the United States, they tend to use a slightly different term for the exact same calculation.
Yeah, they call it the heat index.
Right, the heat index in the US and the humidex in Canada.
And there is actually a fascinating symmetry here with winter vocabulary. The winter equivalent of this calculation is the wind chill factor.
Oh, I never thought about that parallel.
Yeah, just as trapped moisture makes warm air feel oppressively hotter by stopping evaporation, violent wind strips away the thin layer of warm air surrounding your body.
Making cold air feel exponentially colder than the thermometer indicates.
Exactly. The language always prioritizes human sensation over raw data, which gives birth to perhaps the most cliched yet universally spoken phrase in North American English. I mean, it's basically the ultimate anthem of July.
Let me guess. It's not the heat, it's the humidity.
Yes, it's not the heat, it's the humidity. I feel like I hear this 10 times a day when the humidex spikes. Why do we constantly repeat this to each other?
Well, it's what linguists call phatic communion. That's language used for general social interaction rather than to convey strict information.
So we aren't really trying to teach the other person a science lesson.
Not at all. When people say it's not the heat, it's the humidity, they are performing a shared commiseration. They are expressing that they could, in theory, tolerate the raw temperature if the air were dry.
Like a desert heat.
Right. But the moisture makes the environment feel heavy, sticky, and deeply unmanageable. It shifts the blame. You're basically telling your neighbor, I'm not weak for sweating, the air is just broken.
The air is broken. I love that. So if I'm trying to sound completely natural at the office, I wouldn't just complain about the temperature.
No, that would sound a bit unnatural at a C1 level.
I might walk into the break room looking exhausted and say, I was planning to go for a run on my lunch break, but I had to cancel. Honestly, it's not the heat, it's the humidity that makes it impossible to breathe.
That phrasing is flawless. It demonstrates a nuanced understanding of the environment. You aren't just saying, I am hot. You are analyzing why the environment is hostile.
That makes total sense.
Another incredibly common piece of casual small talk is simply shaking your head, blowing out a breath, and saying, it's a hot one out there.
It's a hot one out there. It sounds almost painfully simple, but I know it serves a highly specific social function.
Oh, it is the ultimate summer icebreaker. Imagine you walk into an elevator with a stranger, or you see the mail carrier on your driveway.
Right, you want to acknowledge them.
To establish a brief, friendly rapport. But you don't want to engage in a deep philosophical debate. So you wipe imaginary sweat from your forehead and declare, wow, it's a hot one out there.
And it requires zero intellectual effort to answer.
Exactly. The other person just has to agree, maybe chuckle and reply, sure is, or you can say that again, and you have successfully completed a natural, polite social interaction.
Now, what about the question format? Often, someone will ask, hot enough for you? But I've noticed there is a very specific phonetic reality to how native speakers pronounce this.
Oh, for sure.
They definitely do not enunciate every single syllable.
This is a vital point for C1 learners focusing on effortless listening flow. If you wait to hear hot enough for you spoken with perfect robotic diction, you'll miss the interaction entirely.
Because in natural connected speech, words just collide.
They absolutely do. The you at the end gets dropped, shortened, or slurred into a soft ya sound. It becomes hot enough for ya.
Enough for ya. It almost sounds a bit teasing when you say it like that.
It is entirely teasing. It is usually delivered with a smirk, often directed at someone who spent the entire previous winter loudly complaining about the freezing snow.
Oh, I know people like that.
Or directed at someone who is currently dripping with sweat. It's a rhetorical, playful jab. You are not actually requesting their meteorological preference. You are playfully highlighting the inescapable misery you are both sharing.
Let's look at the language of hyperbole when that misery peaks. People will groan, you could fry an egg on the sidewalk, or they will dramatically collapse into a chair and say, I'm melting.
Classic idioms.
Now, I hear this fry an egg idiom all the time, but wait a second. Is it actually physically possible to fry an egg on the pavement, or is this just pure theatrical drama?
Pure drama, mostly.
Because I remember watching a YouTube video of a guy trying this in the Arizona desert, and the egg just turned into a gross, gooey puddle on the concrete. Scientifically, an egg needs a surface temperature of about 70 degrees Celsius, or almost 160 Fahrenheit, to actually cook through. Pavement rarely gets that hot, right?
Your skepticism is entirely scientifically justified. You are right. The egg usually just bakes into a transparent mess. But linguistically, this phrase is a masterclass in how exaggeration or hyperbole functions in English conversation.
Right, it's not about being literal.
Advanced speakers don't care about scientific accuracy here. They care about painting a visceral, instantly recognizable picture. The sidewalk absorbs the sun's rays and radiates intense, visible heat waves.
So by claiming you could fry an egg on the sidewalk, you're using a physically impossible scenario to communicate a physically impossible level of discomfort.
Exactly. The imagery of a sizzling frying pan is what matters, not the culinary reality.
It's the exact same logic with I'm melting. Obviously, the human body is largely water and bone, not candle wax.
We hope not, anyway.
Yeah, we do not physically melt into puddles. But when that humidex crosses 40, your kinetic energy just evaporates. You feel formless.
Exactly. You lose your structural integrity. So, a native speaker walks into a cafe, dramatically drapes themselves over the counter, and says, "Can we please turn up the air conditioning? I swear I'm melting out here."
It is dramatic. It is expressive.
And it completely replaces the boring, literal statement of "I am experiencing excessive heat."
So true. Now, I want to highlight how effortlessly we are moving through time when we discuss weather. When meteorologists or planners talk about what's coming next, they rely heavily on a specific phrasal verb, looking ahead.
Ah, yes, looking ahead.
How does this function organically in speech?
Well, looking ahead is the quintessential transition phrase for forecasting or planning. It basically means to mentally project yourself into the future to prepare for upcoming conditions.
Oh, like on the news.
Right. A weather presenter on the evening news will pivot from today's recap by saying, looking ahead, temperatures will remain in the low 30s through the weekend.
Okay, so bringing it down to a daily conversation level. If my friend wants to go hiking this Saturday, but I've checked the forecast, I wouldn't say I anticipate future meteorological distress.
No, please don't say that.
I would just naturally say, looking ahead to the weekend, I think we should cancel the hike because a massive heat wave is coming.
Perfect. You are signaling a shift in temporal focus. You are using the future to justify a present decision.
This is great stuff. And before we pivot into category 2, and how our wardrobes and daily routines have to radically shift to survive this heat, I want to take a brief moment to speak directly to you, the listener. If you are enjoying this daily English practice, please like, share, and subscribe to keep the flow going.
It really is the engine that keeps the show running.
Absolutely. All right, let's plunge into the absolute necessity of sun survival and our sartorial shifts.
Sartorial meaning related to clothes.
Right, because when the environment turns hostile, our bodies and our clothing have to adapt immediately. In North America, the vocabulary surrounding how the skin reacts to summer is incredibly precise. I'd almost call it obsessive.
It really borders on a cultural fixation. The dramatic shift in seasons dictates a dramatic shift in physical appearance, especially in northern latitudes where the sun disappears for months.
Right, people barely see the sun from November to April.
During the dead of winter, people are bundled in wool and heavy coats. Their skin rarely sees the light of day. So by the time late spring arrives, many people describe their skin as being very fair or pale.
Now, fair skin is an interesting descriptor. Historically, in English literature, fair was basically synonymous with beautiful.
Yes, the fairest of them all.
But in modern colloquial English, if someone says they have fair skin, they usually mean their skin is naturally very light, lacks melanin, and is highly susceptible to burning.
That's a crucial distinction. Today, fair is almost used as a medical warning. Someone might say, I have to stay under the umbrella, I've got very fair skin.
Got it. But as the summer progresses, that pale skin begins to transform.
It does. And for many decades in Western culture, the desired aesthetic outcome has been to develop a tan.
A tan.
A tan is the darkening of the skin caused by the body producing melanin to protect itself from ultraviolet exposure.
It's totally fascinating how the status symbol flipped over time.
Yeah.
I mean, 100 years ago, being pale meant you were wealthy because you stayed inside.
And a tan meant you were a manual laborer working the fields.
Right. But today, a tan implies you have the wealth and leisure time to lay on a beach in the middle of the week.
The sociolinguistics of aesthetics is always tied to economics. And of course, because we wear clothing while we chase this leisure status, we develop tan lines.
Oh, the dreaded tan lines.
These are the sharp, visible borders on your body where the deeply tan skin abruptly meets the pale skin that was protected by a shirt collar or swimsuit straps.
But the dark side of this pursuit, I mean the painful consequence, is the sunburn. And based on how people complain, there seem to be very specific anatomical targets for sunburns.
A sunburn occurs when the radiation physically damages the cellular DNA of the skin, leaving it bright red, inflamed, hot to the touch, and eventually peeling.
It's the worst.
Cultural observers and dermatologists constantly note that the most frequently bemoaned sunburns happen on the highly exposed, easily forgotten areas.
So true. You'll constantly hear people complaining about burning the bridge of their nose
Or the back of their neck.
and the very tips of their ears. These are the blind spots of sun protection.
Precisely. Which perfectly brings us to the protective armor itself.
The vocabulary here is dense. We have suntan lotion, sunscreen, and sunblock. Are these words just marketing fluff, or are there actual C1 level distinctions in how they are used?
It's a mix of both.
Because I like to think of this stuff as an invisible suit of armor, but why do we distinguish between blocking and screening?
It's a mix of historical marketing and actual dermatological science that has bled into everyday speech. In casual, rapid-fire conversation, many people do use them as synonyms.
Right, like if you are at the pool and ask a friend to toss you the suntan lotion, they will just throw you whatever bottle they have.
Exactly. However, to speak at an advanced C1 level, you really need to understand the subtle technical divergence. Sunblock historically implies a physical, opaque barrier.
So it literally blocks the sun's rays.
It literally blocks them by reflecting them away from the skin. It usually contains thick minerals like zinc oxide or titanium dioxide. It sits heavily on top of the epidermis like a shield.
Right, like that iconic image of a lifeguard in the 1980s with a thick stripe of chalky white paste painted across the bridge of their nose. That's sunblock.
Exactly, that's sunblock. Sunscreen, on the other hand, implies a chemical intervention. It doesn't sit on top as a white paste, it rubs in clearly.
Oh, so it chemically screens the UV rays.
Yes, absorbing the radiation and dissipating it as low-level heat before it can damage the cells beneath. It acts as a filter rather than a wall.
Okay, what about suntan lotion then?
Suntan lotion, interestingly, is a somewhat antiquated term from the 70s and 80s. It originally referred to oils and lotions specifically designed to magnify the sun's rays and help you get a deep tan.
Which offers virtually zero actual protection.
Zero protection. Today, it's often used as a generic catch-all, but younger generations lean heavily toward just saying sunscreen.
And beyond the mechanism, there's the application method. We have sprays versus lotions.
A massive debate.
A lotion is a thick, viscous liquid you have to painstakingly rub into your pores. A spray comes in a pressurized aerosol can and coats you in a fine mist. Both of them, however, share a terrible flaw that native speakers love to complain about.
They leave you feeling deeply uncomfortably sticky.
Oh, there is nothing worse. You already have high humidity, your body is sweating trying to combat the humidex, and then you smear a thick chemical layer over your pores.
It's awful.
You feel like a piece of human flypaper. Every stray dog hair, every grain of sand, every piece of dust in the wind instantly glues itself to your calves.
It is the uncomfortable price of the invisible armor, which is why the acronym SPF is perhaps the most critical piece of summer vocabulary.
SPF, sun protection factor.
Yes. You will rarely hear someone detail the exact chemicals they are using. Instead, they will define their armor by its rating. They'll say, I burn easily, so I slatter on SPF 50.
Or, I just need a light SPF 15 today. The higher the number, the stronger the shield.
Exactly.
So we've protected our skin. Now we have to address the clothing. As the temperature spikes, the winter wardrobe is entirely abandoned. We swap heavy denim and wool for shorts.
But wait, there is a fascinating cultural and practical exception to the shorts everywhere rule when it comes to manual labor.
Yes. Generally, shorts, meaning garments that end above or exactly at the knee, are the undisputed uniform of summer leisure.
However, if you drive past someone doing farm work, heavy landscaping, or construction in the blazing heat, you will notice they are almost always wearing thick, long pants.
Which seems completely counterintuitive if the goal is to survive a heat wave. Like, why would you do that?
It does seem crazy until you understand the environmental hazards. Long pants provide a necessary physical barrier against sharp branches, poison ivy, flying debris from a lawnmower, and ticks.
Oh, right. Ticks are awful.
In this specific context, physical safety simply overrides thermal comfort.
Makes sense? For the upper body, the standard is the ubiquitous t-shirt. And to protect the head, sunglasses and ball caps or wide-brimmed hats?
But the most drastic shift happens at ground level.
Yes, we go from heavy insulated winter boots to lightweight sandals. Or we just walk around in bare feet, which means shedding footwear entirely. No socks, no shoes.
And that profound desire to shed clothing, to walk around barefoot or without a shirt to combat the heat, collides directly with a very famous North American cultural idiom and commercial sign.
Ah, I know this one. No shirt, no shoes, no service.
Yes.
If you walk down the boardwalk of any coastal town or even in downtown city centers during a heat wave, you see this phrase printed on laminated signs taped to the glass doors of convenience stores, diners, and cafes.
It's everywhere.
Can you dissect the sociology behind this phrase? Why did this specific alliteration become the standard?
Well, the phrase serves as a strict, non-negotiable boundary line between public outdoor leisure and private commercial space.
Right.
Because the summer heat makes people want to strip down, you constantly have people wandering away from a public park or a beach wearing nothing but a damp bathing suit.
Walking around bare-chested and barefoot, which feels completely acceptable, even natural, when your toes are in the sand or you are sitting on the grass.
But the moment that person grabs the door handle of a grocery store or a restaurant to buy a cold drink, they cross a severe cultural and sanitary threshold.
Oh, for sure.
The phrase, no shirt, no shoes, no service, is the business owner's shorthand for enforcing a minimum standard of public decency and hygiene.
Right. Nobody wants the sweaty guy in the bathing suit dripping onto the linoleum floor next to the fresh produce.
Exactly. It explicitly communicates if your torso is unclothed or if the soles of your feet are exposed to our floors, we will legally refuse to sell you goods or provide any customer service.
It's very direct.
It gained popularity in the 1960s and 70s to combat casual beach culture bleeding into formal businesses. And the punchy rhythm of it, the hard shound sounds in shirt and shoes leading into the sharp S of service, made it unforgettable.
It's a brilliant piece of rhythmic language. So when we are talking about dealing with all these layers, sunscreen, sunglasses, shorts, we rely heavily on a very simple but essential phrasal verb, put on.
Put on is foundational daily vocabulary. It means to dress oneself or to apply a substance directly to one's body.
And in the context of summer, it expands beyond just clothing to include our protective measures.
Absolutely.
Let me test the natural integration of this. If I'm packing the car for a beach day, I'd probably yell out to my kids, all right, before we get out of the car, make sure you put on a thick layer of sunscreen and put on your sunglasses so you don't fry your retinas.
That flows perfectly. And naturally, the inverse action is takeoff, which happens the moment you get back home and peel away the sticky layers.
Okay, following the logical progression of a sweltering summer day. Category 3. Once we are properly dressed for the heat and feeling incredibly sticky from the SPF 50, the next immediate impulse is finding a way to drastically lower our body temperature.
We have to seek out water.
We absolutely do. Let's explore the vocabulary of aquatic escapes and lake life. You used a fantastic, highly mechanical analogy earlier when we were reviewing the notes on overheating.
Yes, the concept of a human overheating is best understood if you think about an internal combustion engine.
Like in a car.
Right. Imagine a car running at high speeds on a scorching July afternoon. If it is pushed too hard, the cooling system becomes overwhelmed. The radiator boils over, steam shoots out from under the hood, and the engine catastrophically stops functioning.
And the human body operates on an alarmingly similar principle.
It does. When you are exposed to high actual temperatures combined with a crushing humidex, your internal core temperature rises into the danger zone. You are literally overheating. The biological engine is failing.
It is an incredibly visceral, alarming sensation. Your face turns flush red, your limbs feel like they weigh 100 pounds, and your brain just sort of stops processing complex thoughts.
You're in survival mode.
Exactly. You aren't just looking for a drink. You are desperately seeking an immersion event to shock your core temperature back down to normal. You need a quick dip or a swim.
And North Americans have a very established hierarchy of aquatic locations to achieve this rapid cooling.
Right. Where do they migrate to?
At the pinnacle, the most natural environment is the beach, located on the sandy edge of an ocean or a large lake.
That's the dream scenario.
One step down in natural scale, but higher in convenience, is the swimming pool. This could be a massive, coronated public facility maintained by the city.
Or a private rectangular oasis built into a wealthy neighbor's backyard.
Right. For families dealing with toddlers who can't swim, you will frequently see a kiddie pool deployed. This is a very small, shallow, usually brightly colored inflatable plastic ring filled with a garden hose set up on the grass.
I remember those.
And of course, the ultimate engineered luxury to prevent overheating without ever touching water is central air conditioning.
AC. A total lifesaver.
But
Let's talk about the specific garments required for these aquatic escapes. We have the generic terms bathing suit or swimsuit.
which applies to anyone.
Right. For women, the vocabulary splits into the bikini or two-piece versus the one-piece. These are straightforward descriptive terms. But I want to veer into the really interesting sociolinguistic territory.
I think I know where you're going with this.
What happens when people decide to forego these garments entirely? This brings us to a well-known cultural taboo and a fascinating piece of slang. Skinny dipping.
Ah, yes. Skinny dipping.
What exactly is that?
Skinny dipping is the specific act of swimming completely naked, almost always in a natural body of water like a secluded lake or the ocean, and typically under the cover of darkness. From a sociological standpoint, it is a rebellious act strongly associated with youth culture. People in their late teens or 20s at a wild cottage party, or couples seeking a thrill on a deserted late-night beach. It is a deliberate breaking of societal norms.
Now, wait a minute. I really want to unpack the sheer weirdness of this phrase. English can be wonderfully illogical. The word skinny usually refers to physical weight.
It does. It means thin, lean, or lacking body fat.
It absolutely does not mean naked. So why on earth do we say skinny dipping instead of the much more accurate naked dipping?
Yeah.
How does English use these quirky adjectives to soften things that make us uncomfortable?
That is a brilliant sociolinguistic inquiry. You've stumbled upon the power of euphemisms.
Okay, euphemisms.
In English, the word naked carries a lot of heavy, stark baggage. It can feel clinical, vulnerable, or frankly offensive in polite conversation. It confronts a harsh reality that makes people blush.
Like nobody wants to say it out loud at a dinner party.
Exactly. To bypass this discomfort, English speakers frequently invent playful, slightly nonsensical phrases to discuss taboo subjects.
So skinny dipping is just a way to make it sound fun.
Yes. The exact etymological origin of using skinny to mean bare skin in this specific context is somewhat debated by historians, but the linguistic function is crystal clear. The rhythm and sound of skinny dipping is lighthearted and bouncy.
It sounds like a harmless prank.
A childhood game rather than a serious, prosecutable breach of public indecency. The quirky adjective sands the rough edges off the taboo, making it a perfectly acceptable piece of slang to drop into casual storytelling at a dinner party.
That makes perfect sense. It's linguistic camouflage. It takes the edge off the illegal concept. But, returning to safe, legal, and clothed swimming environments, let's talk about safety and the geography that dictates summer for millions of people. First, who is in charge of these waters? Let's define the lifeguard.
A lifeguard is not a casual observer. They are a highly trained professional.
They sit in those tall white chairs,
Yep.
right?
Yes, the lifeguard stand. Their singular duty is to sit high up, constantly scan the water, and physically jump in to execute a rescue if a swimmer is caught in a riptide, exhausted, or actively drowning. They are the ultimate authority on the beach.
And in North America, some of the most treacherous and massive aquatic environments requiring armies of lifeguards are the Great Lakes. I really want to emphasize the geography here, because if you aren't from the region, you probably don't understand the scale.
It's hard to grasp.
This geography dictates the entire summer culture for millions of Americans and Canadians.
Absolutely. The Great Lakes are a colossal series of 5 interconnected freshwater basins located in the upper Mideast region of the continent.
From west to east, you have Superior, Michigan, Huron, Erie, and Ontario.
And 4 of them form a massive natural liquid border between the United States and Canada, while Lake Michigan is situated entirely within the borders of the U.S.
And we cannot stress enough that the word lake is almost a comical understatement here.
Oh, completely.
It's a linguistic disservice. When someone from Europe pictures a lake, they picture a placid pond where they can easily see the trees on the opposite shore.
Yes, the Great Lakes completely defy the standard definition of the word. They are so incomprehensibly enormous that when you stand on the shoreline, you are looking at a curved horizon of open water.
You literally cannot see the other side.
They contain over 20% of the Earth's fresh surface water. They generate their own weather systems, known as lake effect storms.
Wow.
They have treacherous rip currents, massive crashing waves, and thousands of shipwrecks lying at the bottom. For all practical and navigational purposes, they look, behave, and kill exactly like the ocean.
And because of this immense scale, they forge a very specific lake life culture. Entire economies and lifestyles revolve around them.
People build homes on the bluffs, spend their weekends boating on the unpredictable waters, and their entire summer identity is anchored to the lake.
Let's tie this aquatic segment together with a vital phrasal verb, Cool off. We talked about overheating. This is the remedy.
Cool off is the physical and psychological goal of the season. It means to deliberately reduce your body temperature, usually through aquatic immersion or seeking intense air conditioning after experiencing uncomfortable heat.
So, seamlessly dropping this into a story about a weekend trip, I might say, we had been hiking the trails around Lake Superior for 3 grueling hours in the midday sun, and we desperately needed to find a spot by the water to jump in and cool off before someone fainted.
Exactly. It conveys the desperation, the action, and the profound physiological relief all in 2 small words.
Which brings us to category 4, a totally different approach to surviving the summer. Not everyone abandons their home to rush to the beach when the heat hits.
Many people just stay put.
Yeah, millions of North Americans embrace the season by radically transforming their own immediate outdoor spaces.
Let's do a deep dive into the architecture and vocabulary of the great outdoors, backyards, parks, and camping. Specifically, the battle between decks and patios.
So this is a strict architectural and linguistic distinction that absolutely separates a C1 advanced speaker from a beginner. Okay, so tell me the difference.
If you are invited to an upscale summer party, you need to use the right terminology to describe where you are standing. A deck is a specific outdoor structure, almost always constructed out of treated wood or modern composite materials.
Okay.
But the defining feature of a deck is that it is built up in the air. It is elevated off the ground, supported by posts, and is typically attached directly to the main floor of the house, often extending out from a kitchen or living room sliding door.
So it's high up.
Yes. Because it is elevated, the space underneath a high deck is often used for storage or provides a deeply shaded area.
Right. The key physical action is that you have to walk up a set of stairs to get onto a deck. It has railings. It feels like an extension of the house suspended in the air.
Precisely. A patio, conversely, is rooted to the earth. It is built directly at ground level.
Oh, so no stairs.
Right. It is not elevated and therefore rarely requires railings. Furthermore, it is almost exclusively constructed from hard, durable landscaping materials like poured concrete, interlocking stone pavers, or brick.
So linguistically, the prepositions actually change based on the architecture.
Exactly. You step out onto a patio, but you step up onto a deck.
That is a phenomenal distinction. Out onto a patio, up onto a deck. Now, if you want to leave the confines of your suburban backyard entirely, but you don't want to go to a public beach, you might pack up the car and head to what is universally known in the region as the cottage.
The cottage.
This isn't just a building. It is a massive piece of real estate vocabulary loaded with cultural implications.
It truly is a cornerstone of the North American summer dream. A cottage is a second, usually smaller, seasonal vacation home.
And usually located far away from the city, right?
Yes. In regions like Ontario, Canada, or states like Michigan and Wisconsin, these properties are almost always located up north, hours away from the dense, sweltering concrete of the major cities. They are tucked away in deep pine forests or perched on the rocky shores of secluded lakes.
Sounds idyllic. But owning a cottage is a significant economic signifier, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It inherently implies a high degree of disposable income and wealth. It is a profound luxury to own, pay taxes on, and maintain 2 separate pieces of real estate, especially when one is only used for a few months a year.
And what fascinates me is how people refer to this destination. When Friday afternoon hits, colleagues don't say, I am driving to the town of Muskoka. They say, I am heading up to cottage country.
Cottage country.
I really want to pause and dissect this syntax, because English does this in a few specific ways. We say wine country in California. Hunter S. Thompson famously wrote about bat country. And here we have cottage country. How does simply slapping the word country onto the end of a noun instantly forge a whole new geographic and cultural identity?
That is a deeply sophisticated linguistic pattern. When English speakers append country to a common noun in this way, they're stripping the word country of its geopolitical meaning.
So we aren't talking about borders and passports.
Exactly. We aren't talking about a sovereign nation-state with a president, borders, and a military. Instead, we are creating a mythical region that is overwhelmingly, almost spiritually defined by a single characteristic, industry, or lifestyle. It elevates a boring location on a map into an entire cultural mindset.
Wow.
Think about it. When you say wine country, you aren't just describing agricultural land where grapes are grown. The phrase instantly evokes imagery of rolling hills, golden hour sunlight, slow afternoons, and wealth.
Yeah, you instantly picture people sipping wine on a terrace.
Similarly, cottage country isn't a GPS coordinate. It represents an idealized escape. It means winding dirt roads, the smell of pine needles, quiet lakes mirroring the sky, and leaving the relentless urban grind behind.
By adding country, you give the region a unified, romanticized identity
Exactly.
that is beautifully analyzed. It transforms geography into a state of mind. But for the vast majority of people who do not have the disposable income to buy a second home in cottage country, the deep woods still call.
They still want to get outside.
Right, the alternative is going to the park or going camping at dedicated provincial or state campgrounds. And the vocabulary splits sharply here into two very different ways to survive the wilderness. Using an RV versus sleeping in a tent.
Yes, these are two entirely different paradigms of the outdoor experience. An RV, which stands for recreational vehicle and is often colloquially called a motorhome, is essentially a small apartment mounted on a heavy-duty truck chassis.
So it's huge.
Massive. It features a functioning kitchen, a refrigerator, a real mattress, and crucially, its own private plumbing and bathroom. It is a house on wheels.
That sounds like glamping. A tent, on the other hand, requires you to actually build your own shelter upon arrival.
Yes, much more work.
It is a collapsible, portable structure made of thin, synthetic fabric stretched tightly over flexible poles, pegged directly into the dirt.
Very close to nature.
But there is a very interesting, almost ironic logistical rule about tents that emerged recently in certain high-end or heavily regulated campgrounds, isn't there? The idea of roughing it actually gets banned.
It is a fascinating regulatory quirk. During times of strict public health regulations or even just in exclusive luxury campgrounds, tent camping is sometimes entirely prohibited.
Wait, really? You can't use a tent in a campground?
Nope. The rule explicitly dictates that you can only lease a campsite if your vehicle is self-contained.
Self-contained, meaning what?
This means you must arrive in an RV equipped with its own functioning private bathroom and holding tanks. The campground enforces this so that patrons do not have to rely on shared public washroom facilities, mitigating hygiene risks.
That completely flips the traditional narrative of camping upside down.
It does. You are only allowed into nature if you bring a modern bathroom with you.
It is the ultimate irony of the modern outdoors. But honestly, whether you are lounging on a raised wooden deck, sweeping leaves off a stone patio, or sitting in a folding chair in front of a massive RV, the culmination of a summer evening always revolves around one specific unifying element.
Fire and food.
Exactly. Let's transition into Category 5. Culinary cooldowns and the barbecue anomaly. This is perhaps one of the most uniquely versatile words in the English lexicon. Let's put the word barbecue under the microscope.
Barbecue is a spectacular anomaly in the English language because of its aggressive grammatical efficiency. It effortlessly shapeshifts, serving multiple functions simultaneously without ever confusing a native speaker.
Wait, I have to marvel at this for a second. You're telling me native speakers genuinely use the exact same word to describe the heavy metal machine, the physical act of cooking the food, and the social party itself?
Yes, noun, verb, and event.
Isn't that wildly confusing for a non-native speaker to parse in real time? Do linguists have a theory for why a food word evolved to swallow the entire event?
It can be daunting for non-native speakers, absolutely. But sociolinguists recognize this as a common phenomenon of condensation.
Condensation.
When a highly specific, beloved method of food preparation becomes the gravitational center of a social gathering, the language naturally condenses for efficiency. Think about it. It is incredibly stiff and inefficient to say, I formally invite you to a social gathering at my residence where we will congregate to cook marinated meat upon a metal grill.
Right. Nobody talks like that.
Instead, the tool becomes the action, and the action becomes the party.
Okay, let's weave this into a natural C1 level conversation so listeners can hear the differences in context.
Certainly. If I'm complaining about a storm as a noun, I might say, the wind was so fierce last night it blew the heavy cover right off my barbecue. Here, it's the physical appliance.
Got it.
If I'm describing my culinary plans as a verb, I'd say, I went to the butcher because I'm going to barbecue some massive steaks for dinner tonight.
So that's the action of cooking.
And as the encompassing event, a noun again, we are hosting a massive neighborhood barbecue this weekend to celebrate the long weekend. Bring a side dish.
It's brilliantly versatile. Now, what about the sweet treats that follow the heavy meal? Let's talk about summer sweets, specifically the fierce childhood distinction between a popsicle and a freezy, because these are definitely not the same thing.
They belong to the same family of frozen sugar water, But the delivery mechanism is entirely different. A popsicle is a frozen, brightly colored sweet treat molded onto a flat wooden stick. You hold the stick and bite or lick the ice.
The classic stick.
A freezy, however, contains a similar syrupy liquid, but it is sealed tightly inside a long, clear plastic tube. You have to snip off the top with scissors and physically push the ice up from the bottom as you consume it.
And both of these are beloved, nostalgic, and fundamentally cheap everyday options designed to appease overheated children.
Very true.
And the IE suffix on freezy is a classic diminutive. We add it to make the word sound cuter, friendlier, and more appealing to kids. These cheap thrills contrast sharply with ice cream.
Which is dairy-based, vastly richer, scooped into cones, and generally treated as a more expensive, decadent outing.
But if the evening stretches on and a campfire is ignited, there is a whole ritualistic menu that emerges from the flames.
Oh, campfire culinary traditions are a massive pillar of the cultural vocabulary.
What's the main course?
The savory component usually involves finding a long stick in the woods, sharpening it, and roasting hot dogs directly over the open flame until they are blistered.
And then dessert.
Then the dessert phase begins with roasting marshmallows, carefully rotating the sugary white cylinders until they are perfectly golden brown, or accidentally catching them on fire.
Which happens half the time. And the absolute pinnacle of this ritual is the construction of s'mores.
Yes.
S'mores. It is such a strange, wonderful word. It literally derives from the slurred phrase, some more, because they are so addictive, you inevitably demand some more.
It's the perfect name.
For anyone who hasn't experienced this chaotic dessert, a s'more is a gooey, structurally unstable treat made by squishing a blazing hot, freshly roasted marshmallow and a solid square of milk chocolate tightly between two dry graham crackers.
It's an engineering marvel.
The intense heat from the marshmallow rapidly melts the chocolate. It drips everywhere, it ruins your shirt, your hands are permanently sticky, and it is absolute perfection.
But beyond the processed sugar, summer vocabulary is heavily defined by seasonal produce. During the winter, grocery store fruit is hard, flavorless, and imported from thousands of miles away. But summer brings the explosion of local agriculture.
This dominates casual conversation. People get legitimately thrilled about strawberry season, planning weekend road trips to local farms just to pick baskets of them fresh from the dirt.
And of course, the undisputed king of the summer picnic table, the massive, incredibly messy, fresh watermelon.
The vocabulary totally shifts from the drudgery of weekly grocery shopping to eagerly anticipating and hunting for specific, fleeting seasonal harvests.
Exactly.
Let's anchor this entire culinary and social section with the deeply necessary phrasal verb, come over.
Come over is the quintessential, low-pressure casual invitation. It simply means to travel to someone else's home for an informal visit.
So, tying it back to our barbecue discussion, I might shoot a quick text to a friend on a Thursday and say, hey, I'm firing up the barbecue this Saturday afternoon. Do you want to come over?
It is infinitely more relaxed than saying, I cordially invite you to my residence for a meal.
Right. It implies that they can show up in shorts, grab a drink from the cooler, and just exist in the space.
It establishes the relaxed, welcoming, low-stakes atmosphere that defines summer socializing.
Perfect. Which leads us to the aftermath. Category 6, recreation, relaxation, and the language of shadows. After devouring a heavy plate at the barbecue and washing down a sticky s'more, how do North Americans spend those long, lazy, humid afternoons?
Let's get into it.
I want to start this segment by tackling a massive vocabulary hurdle for C1 English learners. I know for a fact this concept trips up incredibly smart, fluent speakers all the time. Can you decisively explain the difference between shade and shadow?
This is perhaps the most critical distinction we will cover today. It is notoriously tricky because in many Romance and Germanic languages, there is only a single unified word used to describe both concepts.
Ah, so the brain naturally assumes they are the exact same thing.
Yes, but in Advanced English, they are entirely different physical realities governed by different grammatical rules.
Okay, lay it out for us.
A shadow is a countable noun. It refers to the dark, specific, defined shape or silhouette cast onto a surface when a solid object, like a building, a dog, or your own body, blocks a direct source of light.
Okay, the shape.
When you walk down the hot pavement at 4 p.m., you can look down and see your shadow stretching out in front of you. It mimics your outline. It moves when you move. You can count them. You'd say, there are 3 shadows on the wall.
Okay, so the shadow is the dark silhouette cast onto a surface. What then is the shade?
Shade is an uncountable mass noun. It refers to the general ambient cool environment that is protected from direct sunlight. It is an area, a volume of space, not a specific shape.
So it's the cool zone.
When the sun is crushing you, you do not sit in a shadow because a shadow is just a dark outline on the hot ground. You seek out the shade to lower your body temperature.
That is a phenomenal way to explain it. The shadow is the visual shape. The shade is the physical environment. Let me run through some natural phrasing to drill this into the listener's ear.
Go for it.
If I'm at the park and I'm overheating, I would say the sun is beating down relentlessly. Let's drag our picnic blanket under the branches of that massive oak tree so we can sit in the shade.
Flawless. And to utilize shadow, you'd say, as the sun dipped low behind the mountains, the tall skyscrapers cast long, creeping shadows across the empty streets.
You retreat into the shade for thermal comfort. You observe a shadow as a visual, moving shape. Got it. Now, what do energetic people do when they refuse to sit quietly in the shade? Let's run through the vocabulary of summer sports and recreational artifacts.
There are quite a few.
You have the frisbee, which is a lightweight, aerodynamic plastic disc you throw back and forth across a park, usually requiring a lot of running and diving. You have golf, which is played on vast, meticulously manicured golf courses. It is universally recognized as a rather expensive, frustrating, and incredibly time-consuming pursuit.
Very time-consuming.
And out on the treacherous waters of the Great Lakes we discussed earlier, you see a culture built around boating, fishing, and the high-speed thrill of water skiing. But there is one sport that I find linguistically hilarious because of how stubborn the English language can be. Beach volleyball.
Yes, beach volleyball is a highly athletic, grueling variation of traditional indoor volleyball. It is played outside in deep sand, entirely barefoot, and usually features a specialized team of only 2 players per side instead of the standard 6.
But here's the bizarre, quirky part of the language. English speakers will adamantly call it beach volleyball, even when it is the second week of January. A blizzard is raging outside, and they are playing inside a giant, heated dome on an artificial pit of sand shipped in from a quarry. They refuse to call it sand volleyball or indoor beach volleyball. The summer title is permanent.
It is a brilliant example of linguistic fossilization. A term becomes so historically and emotionally anchored to the surface it was originally played on, the sandy beach, that the word beach permanently fuses to the sport, regardless of the actual geographical reality or the architectural enclosure.
The word outlives the environment.
Exactly.
And while you are watching that indoor beach volleyball game or sitting around the campfire making a s'more, you are probably sitting on a lawn chair. I have to question this term as well.
Oh, this is a great one.
I fully understand it is a lightweight, portable folding chair made of aluminum and nylon webbing. But why is it specifically anchored to the word lawn, meaning the freshly cut grass of a suburban front yard, even when I pack it into my car and take it camping deep in a pine forest or set it up on the sandy shores of Lake Michigan?
That is a superb question regarding the history of naming conventions. Following World War II, when suburban living violently boomed across North America, having a perfectly manicured green lawn became the ultimate middle-class status symbol.
Right.
Consequently, sitting on that lawn to display your leisure time to your neighbors became a primary social activity. Manufacturers designed lightweight, folding chairs specifically for this new suburban theater and branded them lawn chairs.
And it just stuck.
The name was so ubiquitous that it permanently stuck. Even decades later, as the chairs evolved to become highly portable and traveled to beaches, rugged forests, and paved tailgate parties at stadiums, the original vocabulary remained locked in place. The physical function of the chair drastically expanded, but the word itself refused to evolve.
The vocabulary locked in place. I love that concept. Language is essentially a fossil record. It shows us exactly how we used to live, even if we don't live that way anymore.
It truly is an archaeological dig every time we speak.
Well, we have covered a staggering amount of linguistic ground today. We survived the extreme heat waves and deciphered the humidex. We navigated the chemical intricacies of sunblock versus sunscreen and decoded the strict social etiquette of no shirt, no shoes, no service.
We really did cover a lot.
We stood on the shores of the massive Great Lakes to find the critical architectural difference between stepping up onto a deck versus out onto a patio, and finally conquered the C1 grammatical hurdles separating the environment of shade from the shape of a shadow.
But, as promised at the very beginning of this deep dive, we have a special, overarching bonus for you to wrap things up.
Yes, the promised bonus is the ultimate inescapable cultural phenomenon of the season, the family reunion.
The family reunion.
What exactly constitutes this event, and why is it so heavily restricted to the summer months?
A family reunion is not a casual Sunday dinner. It is a massive, highly organized, logistical gathering of extended family members. You aren't just seeing your immediate family, your parents, and your siblings.
Oh, no, it's way bigger than that.
It is an event where you are forced to mingle with aging grandparents, obscure great-aunts, distant uncles, and second or third cousins who you might only see once a year or perhaps once a decade.
And why summer?
The reason they're almost exclusively a summer phenomenon comes down to pure geometry and weather. The warm weather allows families to rent large outdoor pavilions at public parks or host massive, sprawling barbecues in backyards.
Right, because nobody has a house big enough for that.
Exactly. It is the only season that can comfortably accommodate 50 or 100 people who would never, ever fit inside a single suburban house during a frozen January weekend. It is the cornerstone of summer social obligations.
It is a massive, exhausting undertaking of eating lukewarm potato salad and desperately trying to remember your third cousin's name without insulting them.
Ha ha, exactly.
Now, before we officially sign off, we have an interactive idiom challenge specifically designed for you, the listener, to activate your daily English practice. We don't want you just passively listening. We want you creating.
Yes, we want you to actively deploy the C1 concepts we've unpacked today. For today's idiom challenge, go down to the comment section right now and explain entirely in your own words what it means when someone dramatically sighs and says, "You could fry an egg on the sidewalk."
But do not just copy and paste a dictionary definition.
No, describe the physiological feeling, the environmental conditions, and the specific use of hyperbole we discussed. Write your detailed answers down below.
We read all of them, and constructing these explanations in your own words is scientifically the best way to cement this advanced vocabulary deep in your brain.
Absolutely.
Also, to prove to us and to yourself that you are fully dedicated to your C1 English journey, write the exact phrase "I stay committed" in the comment box right now. It takes 5 seconds, but it is a small physical action that builds the psychological habit of success.
It acts as a digital signature of your dedication, and it shows us exactly who is doing the hard work to reach that effortless listening flow.
Exactly. And once again, if you found real value in this exhaustive deep dive, please take a second to like, share, and subscribe to keep the everyday English flow going. We rely entirely on word of mouth from dedicated learners like you to reach a wider audience.
It makes a huge difference.
As we wrap up this massive exploration of summer language, I want to leave you with a final, slightly provocative thought to mull over as you go about your day. We spent the last hour meticulously detailing how the vocabulary of heat, the specific terminology for outdoor architecture, and the quirky euphemisms we invent to soften taboos all instantly adapt the moment the season changes.
They adapt immediately.
But think deeply about this. If our language, our daily routines, our clothing, and our social boundaries transform so completely just because the Earth tilts a few degrees closer to the sun for 3 months, how much of our everyday personality, the very core of who we believe we are, is actually just a temporary reaction to the weather?
Wow. Are you really a relaxed, laid-back person, or is the Humidex just forcing you to slow down?
Exactly. Think about that the next time you find yourself wiping your brow and complaining about the humidity. Keep practicing, keep listening, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.